Let me share a story that would have kept you up at night back in your college days, and honestly, it should probably keep you up tonight if you don't understand what is happening behind closed doors. Imagine sitting around a table in a crowded bar with a group of female friends during your final year of university. The drinks are flowing, the music is playing in the background, and the conversation naturally shifts to the topic that dominates almost every social gathering: dating, romance, and the men attempting to pursue them. Suddenly, one of the girls, let's call her Sarah, pulls out her phone, starts laughing, and introduces the entire table to the group chat. What follows is a brutal, unfiltered, and highly analytical dissection of men's dating profiles, text messages, and pickup lines. They aren't laughing with appreciation. They are laughing at how completely, utterly clueless these men are. They scroll through screenshots of opening lines that guys spent hours masterminding with their buddies, completely tearing them apart in seconds. The most eye-opening part of the night happens when they start talking about physical escalation. One of the girls stands up and imitates a guy making a super obvious, clumsy, mechanical move at the end of a date, the classic stiff arm around the shoulder shift. The entire group bursts into a collective roar of laughter. And it isn't a sweet, "Oh, he's so cute and nervous" kind of laugh. It is a, "Can you believe how incredibly out of touch this guy is" kind of laugh. That exact moment reveals a profound, somewhat terrifying truth that every man needs to realize. Women possess a completely hidden language of attraction that most men never get to read. The wildest part of this dynamic is that those guys have absolutely no idea they are the punchline of a joke shared among 5 different households. They go home thinking they did everything right. They think they were smooth. They think they played their cards perfectly, and they wonder why they suddenly get hit with the "I had a great time, but I didn't feel a spark" text the next morning. If you think this behavior ends after graduation, you are completely mistaken. The platform changes, the maturity level shifts slightly, but that hidden rule book remains active for life. Whether you are 25, 35, or 50, the hidden critique is happening. Misunderstanding this invisible script is precisely why so many men find themselves perpetually stuck in the friend zone, dealing with a dead bedroom in long-term relationships, or struggling to create any form of genuine chemistry on a first date. It is time to throw out the terrible advice you've been fed by movies, pop culture, and your single friends, and look directly at the science-backed reality of how attraction actually functions. To understand why men fail so frequently in this arena, we have to look at the fundamental biological and psychological disconnect between how men and women experience desire. Most men completely misunderstand female desire because they project their own internal experiences onto women. This is a cognitive bias that ruins relationships before they even start. For men, attraction functions almost entirely like a digital light switch. It is binary. It is either completely off or it is instantly flipped on. The male model of arousal is fast, highly visual, automatic, and deeply primal. A man sees an attractive person, and his brain instantly sends physical and hormonal signals throughout his body. There is very little processing time required. Because this is your reality as a man, you naturally assume the rest of the world operates the same way. You think, if I just look good enough, go to the gym, wear the right cologne, and say the correct sequence of smooth words, the switch in her brain will flip instantly, just like mine does. But when men apply this light switch mentality to women, they get completely blindsided by rejection. The female model of desire does not operate on an instantaneous visual trigger. It functions much more like a slow cooker or a complex environmental control system. A woman's arousal is frequently the result of a prolonged, carefully established environment rather than an automatic starting point. Behavioral scientists and sexologists refer to this phenomenon as responsive desire. While men largely experience spontaneous desire, which pops up out of nowhere based on a visual stimulus, women generally require a specific context to activate their desire. A woman typically does not feel physical craving or arousal until she is already completely immersed in an environment that makes her feel emotionally secure, intellectually engaged, and highly intrigued. When a man doesn't understand responsive desire, he acts purely on his own timeline. He tries to initiate physical intimacy out of nowhere. He goes for a physical escalation way too early on a date, sends an overtly sexual or intensely flirty text message right out of the gate, or pushes for intimacy in a long-term relationship before any emotional warmth has been established. This behavior is the exact equivalent of taking a raw steak, putting it in a pan over a massive flame for 5 seconds, and expecting a perfectly cooked meal. It doesn't work. The outside gets scorched, the inside stays freezing cold, and the entire experience is ruined. When a woman pulls away or says she is just not in the mood, it rarely means she lacks the biological capacity to desire you. What it actually means is that you are trying to cook on the wrong timeline. Her internal switches are protected by a complex security system, and if the environment isn't dialed in correctly, her physical body will literally refuse to cooperate. To understand how to unlock responsive desire, we have to look at the evolutionary biology of the human brain. If a woman's body is the destination you are trying to reach, her mind is the highly sophisticated GPS system guiding the way. You cannot get to the physical destination unless you first successfully navigate the psychological map. Biologically speaking, the single greatest accelerator for a woman's desire is something most men completely overlook. It isn't a six-pack, a luxury car, or a perfect jawline. The ultimate aphrodisiac in the female nervous system is psychological safety. From an evolutionary standpoint, the female brain is highly optimized for threat assessment. Throughout human history, intimacy carried massive evolutionary risks for women, including physical vulnerability and long-term reproductive consequences. Because of this, the female amygdala, which is the brain's alarm system, is incredibly sensitive. When a woman feels even a slight amount of unsafety, whether that unsafety is physical, emotional, or social, her brain immediately sounds the alarm. The moment that alarm goes off, her endocrine system floods her body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones trigger a fight, flight, or freeze response. Biologically, it is impossible for the human body to experience high levels of stress and high levels of sexual arousal simultaneously. The nervous system prioritizes survival over reproduction every single time. This explains why a woman can be laughing, chatting, and flirting with a guy at a lounge for hours, but the absolute second he starts to rush her, crowd her physical space, or exhibit aggressive, needy behavior, she completely freezes up and shuts down. Most men misinterpret this sudden shift. They think, wow, she was leading me on, or she completely changed her mind. But she didn't change her mind. Her brain simply stepped in to protect her. The moment the man began rushing or forcing the interaction, her internal threat assessment center registered his behavior as unpredictable, erratic, or dangerous. Her nervous system pulled the emergency brake. We also need to clear up a massive misconception here. Being a passive, overly accommodating, nice guy does not create psychological safety. In fact, it often does the exact opposite. When a man acts completely devoid of boundaries, constantly walks on eggshells, and tries desperately to please a woman, her subconscious reads that behavior as weakness or hidden manipulation. It signals instability. True safety stems from emotional stability and groundedness. A woman's nervous system relaxes when she is in the presence of a man who is calm, predictable, and structurally solid. She needs a man who doesn't get visually rattled, anxious, or defensive when she teases him, tests his boundaries, or throws an emotional curveball his way. While male arousal thrives on physical novelty and excitement, female arousal thrives on permission, the psychological permission to let go of control, drop her social guard, and be completely vulnerable. When your grounded confidence provides that protective barrier, her threat center turns off, her nervous system relaxes, and her brain finally gives her permission to feel desire. Now that you understand the underlying neuroscience, how do you actually apply this knowledge in the real world? How do you change the environment so that her internal switches flip naturally? You do this by systematically turning 3 practical desire dials that alter the entire context of your interactions. These dials move you away from cheap dating hacks and anchor you in deep behavioral psychology. Instead of chasing a single chaotic spark, you are managing a structured system where dial 1, appreciation, actively builds emotional security. Dial 2, anticipation, intentionally creates sexual tension. And dial 3, competence, firmly establishes primal safety. When you adjust these three settings in tandem, you change the underlying environment completely. Almost every man knows how to give a basic surface level compliment, but very few men understand how to actually connect through one. Telling a woman she looks beautiful, has nice eyes, or wears a great dress is fine, but it is completely basic and highly predictable. It is the exact same data she has received from dozens of guys in her direct messages and at bars. Her brain has developed a literal immunity to surface level compliments. It processes them as white noise. If you want to stand out and lower her psychological guard, your appreciation must shift from superficial flattery to deep recognition. True appreciation means noticing the specific behavioral patterns, character traits, and intellectual details that most men completely overlook. Instead of commenting on her physical appearance, focus on her identity and choices. For example, look at her and say, "I love the absolute clarity and passion you have when you talk about your career goals. It's incredibly rare to see someone that dialed in." Or, "You have this very distinct, calm groundedness about you. I noticed the exact moment you sat down." This type of language completely bypasses her superficial defenses and speaks directly to her core identity. It signals to her subconscious mind, "This man actually sees who I am, not just what I look like." The moment a woman feels genuinely seen and understood by a man, her emotional guard drops, her body language relaxes, and her energy shifts. You stop being a potential threat or a repetitive suitor, and you become a safe harbor of understanding. Stop complimenting what she shows to the superficial world and start validating the unique qualities she normally keeps hidden. Desire requires psychological oxygen to burn, and that oxygen is created through delay and pacing. This is the exact step where the vast majority of men destroy their chances. Because men operate on that instantaneous light switch model, they constantly try to accelerate the interaction. They show absolute, overwhelming interest immediately. They double text, reply within half a second, constantly check in, and try to force physical progression as quickly as possible. By removing all mystery and pacing, you completely kill the attraction. The female brain experiences a powerful release of dopamine, the chemical associated with anticipation and reward, when an outcome is highly compelling but not entirely predictable. If there is no tension, there is no desire. True romantic anticipation means understanding that tension is a tool, not a problem to be solved. It means letting a flirty text message sit for a bit, allowing room for her imagination to wonder what you are doing. It means using a low, deliberate tone of voice or maintaining intense, comfortable eye contact during a conversation without immediately rushing to fill every single second of silence with nervous chatter. Allowing a moment to breathe creates emotional weight. It forces her mind to actively engage in the interaction, wondering what your next move will be. This psychological tension is what causes her to think about you when you are completely absent from her physical environment. This has nothing to do with childish mind games, playing hard to get, or manipulative tactics. It is simply the art of behavioral pacing. Let the moments breathe, let the silence work entirely in your favor, and allow her own imagination to do the heavy lifting for you. The final dial is rooted deeply in our primal evolutionary history, the projection of competence. Historically, human survival depended on selecting partners who could effectively navigate a chaotic, dangerous environment. In the modern world, this primal trigger doesn't mean you need a multi-million-dollar net worth, a massive corporate title, or physical dominance. Modern competence means demonstrating that you can handle life efficiently, make definitive decisions, and manage pressure without falling apart. A man who projects competence is someone who takes definitive action. On a practical level, this looks like planning a date completely from start to finish, selecting the location, handling the logistics, and giving clear directions rather than texting her a lazy, open-ended, "I don't know, what do you want to do?" It looks like remaining completely cool, composed, and solution-oriented when a restaurant loses your reservation or your car gets a flat tire. When a woman observes a man navigating the minor crises of daily life with quiet capability, authority, and zero emotional drama, her subconscious reads that data as structural stability. Her brain concludes, This is a man who can handle his reality. Therefore, I can safely lower my guard. Competence is the ultimate proof of masculine capability. It provides her nervous system with the ultimate green light to stop monitoring for threats, step down from the leadership role, and entirely surrender her emotional control. When you look at these three distinct dials, you begin to see that female desire isn't a mysterious, impossible riddle that cannot be solved. It is a highly logical, beautiful, interconnected psychological system. Most men fail because they view dating as a series of isolated transactional events. They think a single pickup line, a single outfit, or a single expensive dinner will magically unlock intimacy. But a woman's psychology doesn't respond to individual transactions. It responds to the overall environment you build over time. To create a complete environment of systemic female attraction, these three components must integrate seamlessly. This process functions like a precision formula. Appreciation combines with anticipation and competence to build a single, unified psychological space. Within this dynamic, appreciation acts as the first crucial layer, dropping her social defenses and opening the channel of communication by establishing initial emotional security. Next, anticipation layers on top to spark romantic and playful tension, turning a comfortable interaction into a compelling magnetic pull. Finally, competence provides the overarching protective structure, giving her nervous system the ultimate structural safety and reassurance she needs to step away from her hyper-vigilant defense mechanisms entirely. When you master the art of turning these three dials simultaneously, your dating life completely shifts. You no longer have to guess what women want, nor do you have to stress about saying the exact perfect script on a date. You stop chasing instantaneous, superficial reactions, and you start focusing entirely on cultivating the proper context. The moment you step into this deeper understanding of human biology and psychology, you stop trying to desperately force a woman's switch to turn on. Instead, you naturally embody the exact type of grounded, competent, and fascinating presence that her system simply cannot turn off. You become the rare man who understands the hidden language of attraction, moving far ahead of the clueless crowd stuck in the group chat.